Hi, I'm Everett Abrams, the Wizard of Wood. Here we are at the shop in Chemung, New Jersey. It's hot, it's a summer day. Hey, but it's real world and that's what we do. So we work outside. Today we're gonna re-video the demo that we do for distributors, for customers, for when we have the class and so forth. So you can see exactly the difference in the products and what we should be doing with wood restoration in today's market. It makes it easier for you. We're gonna expand your arsenal. We're gonna show you the results, and we're talking about some of the products. Okay, so the first thing we want to talk about though as we get into this is our standard. And the standard for exterior wood restoration comes with step one, which is pre-wetting the wood. The reason we pre-wet the wood is we fill the cells of water, and then what happens is when we apply either the cleaner or restoring product that we're going to use or the stripper, it's going to sit closer to the surface where we want it to be more effective. Because that's where our organic growth is, it's where our coatings are, it's where we want it to be most effective. So wood is porous, so if we apply a stripper or a restoring product to the wood and it's dry, it just soaks in, it pulls into the wood, it pulls in below the surface. It actually is not as effective. You can try that on your own if you want to do a practice on your, with a piece of fence like we're going to use today. You use it on a pallet. You can even try it if you wanted to on somebody's job, but I don't recommend that. So what happens is if you pre-wet the wood, keep everything close to the surface, you're going to get a better result. And that's what we're shooting for when we do wood restoration, is an optimal result. You'll hear me refer to optimal result a lot. That's what the products do. That's what these techniques and procedures are for. So pre-wetting the wood keeps everything close to the surface. We know that water is a barrier. We use it all the time in a lot of the work that we do that is similar to wood restoration. So if we're pressure washing or anything like that, we'll pre-wet landscape, we'll pre-wet surroundings and so forth. So we're used to using water as a barrier. That's in essence what we're doing. We're creating a barrier. We're creating a barrier so that the products stay close to the surface, more effective. So anyway, that's pre-wetting the wood. The other thing with pre-wetting the wood is we won't stain the wood with higher alkaline or harsher chemicals and products that could possibly stain the wood on dry wood. It keeps everything nice, even. You don't have to worry about marks or anything like that. The other thing too is by creating that barrier, it's easier to rinse the chemicals out and off of the wood. When we have to put it in dry, when we put it in dry wood and it soaks in, it's very hard to get the chemicals and the products out. We don't want to leave that in the wood because it dries the wood out and could prematurely expire the wood. We don't want to do that. Now, we're not talking about, if we leave the chemicals in the wood, the fence or the deck is going to be no good in a week. But what happens is harder to rinse. It's always a two-step process. So we start with an alkaline product, then we come back with an acidic product, and that neutralizes the surface. So what we want to do is we want to rinse, but we want to rinse till everything is out. We don't see any suds, we don't see anything coming out of the wood. To do that, in the easiest way is to pre-wet the wood, keep it to the surface, easy rinse, and that's how we do it. That's only step one. Okay, step two, I already alluded to it. I talked about the products. I talked about cleaners and restoration products. I talked about strippers. I haven't talked about, well, the second step is brighteners. And the reason we talk about these is because that's how you restore wood. Pressure does not restore wood. While I'm talking about that, bleach is a product. Sodium hypochlorite bleach. Sodium hypochlorite is same thing. It does not clean the wood. It doesn't restore the wood. We're going to show you in this demo what it does actually, or what it can do. So it actually lightens the wood, so the color and the richness is gone from it. It's not as good as if we use a restoring type of chemical or product in it. And we'll talk about that as we do our demo. So the other thing with bleach is bleach works on a non-porous surface very well. So for building cleaning, it gets rid of organic growth, a mold mildew and algae and so forth. However, on wood, that is not the case. Wood is a porous surface, as I previously alluded to. So if you're asking bleach that works on a non-porous surface to work on a porous surface where it's not as effective, it isn't going to work. It's like putting a square peg in a round hole. It doesn't work. Didn't work when we were little kids working with the little toy, and it doesn't work in today's market either. So bleach, sodium hypochlorite, is a surface type cleaner. Where it applies to wood restoration is it's really good if you've already stained a deck and you're coming back for the maintenance and you just want to do a light clean and then you're going to restain. You could use your house wash mix. Maybe if you can get away with just soap, detergent and water, that's great. If you got to put a little bleach, sodium hypochlorite in it, I get it, that's fine. That's where it would be most effective in wood restoration. But sometimes asking it to do more than it can do is a recipe for disaster, because if you have to do it twice, one, it takes more labor, so it ends up costing more, or secondly, you can take out a lot of the color and the tone of the of the wood. So the third thing we want to do is rinse. And we want to make sure we rinse, rinse, and rinse again. If you think you rinsed enough, just rinse it again anyway. The reason we rinse again is because we want to get rid of all the chemicals, everything on that wood. If we don't, we could create a salt, we could create issues with the coating. So that's why we want to rinse, rinse, rinse again, okay? And then the fourth thing is, if we're going to do all this work, then we want to preserve the wood. We want to extend the life of it, so we're going to put a sealer or a stain on it. People get confused between sealer and stains and paints and coatings and so forth. Exterior, we're doing one or the other. Sealers, we put on there. They're very easy to maintain. They last a couple years. Then you light clean and reapply. What happens with the sealers, they accentuate the wood and so forth. When we start getting into the stains, semi-transparents and solids, it's a one product fits all in most cases. There are some two-part products out there, so I don't want to discount that, but for the most cases, it's one coat and that's it. You want to explain that to a customer or someone who doesn't know, because some people actually think that it's like furniture inside and you stain it and then you put a clear coat on it. You want to explain to them we don't do it that way when we do decks and deck stains or wood stains. We're not usually putting, unless it's a two-part product, and there are some out there, we do not put the stain and then a clear coat. Okay. So now that we've talked about the standard for wood restoration, we're going to apply that as we restore this piece of fence behind us. So what we do when we do demos or we're out teaching a class and so forth, we actually pick up pieces of decking, fencing, that kind of stuff to restore. So this is pretty bad shape. It's very great behind us. It's got some growth going on it. It's got all kinds of stuff. Got a little, even actually have a little bit of lichen in it, L-I-C-H-E-N, lichen. These are the type of organic growth and some of the things we will see naturally when we're out working, you know, on homes, on roofs, cedar shake roofs, on houses, whatever it is, decks, anything. So as I talk about those type of different projects we would work on, I do want to emphasize that when we start talking about these products that we're going to use on this demo, that can be applied to cedar shake roofs, cedar shake houses, cedar siding, decks, log cabins. It doesn't change when we're restoring the wood. The difference is, what are we going to use and what is the result we're looking for? Are we stripping a product off, or are we just cleaning and restoring? Is the wood just lightly gray? Has it never been stained before? These are the things that we put into the formula and decide what we're going to use. So we're getting ready to start the demo. As we start this demo, we're going to follow the standard. We're going to work left to right. We're going to use, what we have is our typical cleaner. Then we're going to use our, our house wash mix, which a lot of people use. Then we're going to use our deck cleaner, which is in the 2-pound container. Then we're going to use our restorer, which I'll explain as we do each one, which is sodium metasilicate product. The cleaner is a sodium percarbonate. Then we're going to use our stripper. Our stripper has a few different types of things in it, and then we're also going to use our brightener. Just real quick on the stripper, and I'll talk about it more in depth. If you're using sodium hydroxide today as a stripper, it's always been effective on oil-based coatings and oil-based coatings only. It is not as effective on water-based. If you're going to be in wood restoration today, you have to be able to deal with water-based coatings because they're out there. They're more prominent than ever, especially since 2009, when federal VOC compliance changed. That's where the advent of a lot of water-based coatings became more prominent. In case you're watching this video and you heard me say 2009, yes, I'm alluding to all you people who are still using the same procedures from 2009. You're a dinosaur and it isn't going to work. It's 2021. You need more than sodium hydroxide to strip or restore today's coatings. Okay, so let's get ready and start the demo. Here we go. All right, so the first step in our standard was to pre-wet the wood, and that's what we're going to do now. So here we go. At this point, it's just really a matter of just putting a lot of water onto the wood surfaces. Go this way, a little stronger. We're going to use the reason we're using this gun on the hose is because we don't need a pressure washer to restore wood. It's not about pressure, it's really about the products. And this has enough pressure, believe it or not, to rinse off the wood when we're done. So again, we're just pre-wetting the wood real good. Again, this keeps the products we're going to use closer to the surface. You can really see the lichen on here as we wet the wood. Again, this won't matter whether it's a fence, it's a deck, house siding, log cabin, whatever it is. Always pre-wet the wood. Again, keep everything close to the surface. Be in good shape. Again, the reason we're using an old section of fence is we pull these up on the side of the road when we see them just for these demos. And pretty much the wood doesn't get much worse than this. This is real world. We're going to see this stuff when we go to do work, okay? So now that we've pre-wet everything really well, we're going to shut our water off for now. This doesn't mean we're not going to come back to the water, because as it dries, we may have to mist it and keep it wet. You always want to have wet wood. So we'll set that down for now, and the first thing we're going to do is work with our house cleaner. Now, house wash mix is something that a lot of people use on the lower end, and because they don't know better that there's other products that actually deliver a better result. Again, this is better for maintenance than it is for actually the restoration or cleaning, which a lot of people do. So let's try that now. This has our soap or detergent. It has a sodium hypochlorite in it. It's mixed about 4 to 1. And what we're going to do is we're going to go left to right. We'll keep the some old stuff so we can compare to. And we're just going to do the next two. And a lot of times you'll see this stuff work as you go. The one thing about working with this product is it doesn't show the result of the wood the way the other products that we're about to use. So the other products hold the tone and color of the wood. This doesn't. What it does by using house wash mix with soap and sodium hypochlorite is we really go after the organic growth more than anything. If we weren't pre-wetting the wood, the bleach would go to the surface. It would go attach to the gray fibers or the organic growth and be done, because bleach reacts with the first thing it comes in contact with. When it does that, then it reacts and it doesn't even really touch the wood. So the result is when it's all cleaned and it dries, it's blotchy because it didn't do the same thing consistently on the whole plank or on the wood, because wherever that growth was or wherever it reacted first, it didn't get to the wood surface. So that first two boards is going to be our cleaner. And you'll see it doesn't do as well or as much. Next, we're going to use sodium percarbonate. A lot of people refer to it as OxyClean or oxygenated bleach. Sodium percarbonate, when added with water, is very similar to hydrogen peroxide at a lot less money and is very effective. It's also environmentally friendly. Somebody wants you to use an environmentally friendly cleaner for the deck, sodium percarbonate is your product, okay? So first two are our, where we started. The next two is our deck cleaner, house wash mix, the one that traditionally everybody uses. This is going to be the deck cleaner on the next two. And what this is what we would normally use if we're doing wood restoration. And you can kind of see how this stuff's working already. Okay? I mean, it's pretty visible, you can tell. It's working on the surface. The other thing with sodium percarbonate that's different, and why we use sodium percarbonate, is because sodium percarbonate will get to the root of the organic growth, where a house wash mix or sodium hypochlorite won't. We may reapply. It's pretty evident there what's going on, and it's working. This is wood. Now we're getting into really wood restoration. This isn't cleaning, this is restoration. When you use the word restoration, then what happens is people start thinking in their mind, this is going to be more money. This is going to be a more professional job. That's what we're doing right here. Again, if we have to pre-wet or reapply, we'll do that. The next one we're going to work on is, our product is called Restore. It has sodium metasilicate in it. People say, well, a lot of people are starting to use it, it's becoming more mainstream. The people that don't realize that we've been using sodium metasilicate in this business for a long time. When there was an issue with a manufacturer of composite decking, 20 years ago, they had to come up with a cleaning procedure on how to clean the decks, the composite decks. So what happened is the first step had sodium percarbonate and sodium metasilicate in it. Sodium metasilicate is like a light stripper. It has lifting ability in it. That's why you'll see sodium metasilicate in products. It's not as harsh as the stripper, sodium hydroxide, potassium hydroxide, and the other chemicals. I know I'm throwing a lot at you at one time in this video, but sodium metasilicate, what happens with those is it doesn't fuzz up the wood as much. It's not as harsh. So then you don't have to worry about the fuzzing of the wood. If you are just trying to create an arsenal to restore wood of just your house wash mix, which a lot of people do, and sodium hydroxide, you will not get the results needed in 2021. And again, I'll just say it again, you're a dinosaur. It isn't going to work. It's going to not work for you. It's not, you're going to get frustrated. Your customers aren't going to be happy. There's better products to restore the wood. So here we go, Restore. Now the Restore, we're going to do on the next two. What happens with this is, again, it has a nice lifting ability. So now instead of seeing the white, you're going to see the wood actually darken up. And I'm not sure if you can see. Now we're using a brush. The brush we're agitating with, this is to take the place of the pressure washer. If we were to rinse with the pressure washer, we don't need to agitate necessarily. You can if you have a tough coating that has to be stripped off or a lot of organic growth and you want to agitate, that's fine. If you're working on a composite deck, I recommend using a brush and the proper cleaning agent to agitate and clean it. Always with wood and with composite decking, the least amount of product you can use, the least strength to get the job done is always the best. All right, so here we go. We've got our Restore on there, and it's pretty evident if you're looking, and if we can get a little closer, we can see the wood is darkening up. What happens is, as we move up the ladder on the pH scale and we use higher alkaline products, they react with the tannins in the wood, and they're actually restoring the wood, and that's why you see it darkening up. Everett, what is tannins? Come on, wizard, what is tannins? You're throwing stuff out we never heard of. Tannins are what give wood its pigmentation and color. So it's reacting with the tannins, it's actually restoring the wood. Now, this is completely different than those house wash bandits that are out there. Those people that are cleaning. They should differentiate what they're doing. This is restoration, that is cleaning, okay? Let's go to the stripper. Now, in regards to stripper, a good stripper today will have a few different things in it. Now, I know people boost sodium hydroxide with butyl in real world. Some people are using potassium hydroxide. You know, a good stripper might have all three of them in it, a la Deck Restoration Plus products. And we try to combine all the different types of products or products we need, chemicals, to address today's coatings. And that's what we're doing here. So here we go with the stripper on the next two. And again, you'll see it darkening up. And some people will say to me, hey, wizard. Sounds like Willis calling. Hey, wizard. And anyway, hey, wizard, will this get rid of the organic growth, the mold and mildew, if it's a stripper? The answer is yes. And you can see it coming off as I do this too. And you can also see how dark it's getting. Okay? So now we've used here's our control over the first two. We've used the house wash mix. You can already see a difference. This is our sodium percarbonate. This is our sodium metasilicate product, our Restore for Deck Restoration Plus products, and then our stripper. Now again, it's starting to dry. You're going to have a variable dwell times on products of anywhere from usually 10 to 30 minutes. Depending on the climate and so forth, it may be longer, multiple coatings longer, especially with strippers. So what we want to do is just make sure that we keep it pre-wet, and we just want to mist it. And if we have to, we'll reapply. We're starting to get an idea of what's happening. Now, as I'm letting that dwell and we're watching how that works, I want to talk about the second step to any one of these, and that is using a brightener. For us, we use an oxalic acid type brightener. There's a little bit of citric acid in it. The reason if somebody wants an environmentally friendly type brightener, citric acid is your go-to. However, the reason we use oxalic acid is many-fold. One is it gets rid of iron and rust stains, which citric acid will not do. One of the other reasons we use it is it works quickly. We know within 5 minutes on cedar or pressure treated what it's going to look like. A good idea. We always, what we call trust the process. If you know you're using the right products, just trust that it's going to look good when it's dry and it's done, as this demo will show. The other thing with oxalic acid too, we actually use it on new wood. So if we clean new wood and we go through the first step with our cleaner, we put a brightener on. And the reason we do that, if you've heard of acid etching or opening up the pores of concrete, it's no different with wood. Using that oxalic acid or a brightener helps open up the pores of new wood to for better adhesion and penetration of a new sealer or stain if we're applying right away. Just so we know, we're going to put our coating on here today too as well. When you apply a coating, the coating should go on as soon as possible. Now, if you have wet, pressure treated pine, it's not kiln dried, definitely wait 3 to 6 months at least before you clean and stain or seal. But if you have kiln dried, it's prime wood, you know, and you can get some stain on there, it's better off before wood starts checking, because it's going to check up and dry out in 6 months. So you should go put a coating on. The best thing to do is create the expectation with the customer ahead of time. Let them know the first time it's stained, it may not last the full 2 years, but after that it'll be 2+ years on your maintenance, and that's usually the way it works. And that's on a sealer or one of those lighter opaque products. Okay, so anyway, we've reapplied, it's wet. We'll just go back and just make sure that we've done a good job here. Again, if we were just using a pressure washer, we would have put this on with a pump sprayer, 12 volt something, and we would have been good to go, okay? So for this, we're just going to use the brush. Here is our deck cleaner. Now, if you notice, the second time I've applied this, it is actually darkening up the wood a little more. And that's what sodium percarbonate does differently than sodium hypochlorite. Sodium hypochlorite will lighten the wood. Sodium percarbonate makes it a little bit darker. Our Restore actually goes on a little bit more. And then we'll just reapply. Or re-wet, I'm sorry. Let that sit for a few minutes. Now I want to talk about what happens after we do the brightener. After we use the brightener, we're going to be ready to either let it dry for an oil-based product to stain or seal, or for a water base, may be the same thing. However, the Deck Restoration Plus products we can apply to wet or dry wood. We're going to do that today too. So after this is done and we've rinsed it off and restored it, brightened it, we are going to put some stain on it, on a couple panels. We're going to let it dry, and then we'll come back and look at it and stain it dry as well. So you can see that there's really no difference between the two when it's stained. Okay, neat product, great technology, awesome stuff. All right, so here we go. We're going to rinse now, and I'm going to use the higher pressure that's on the gun. This mimics a pressure washer, so to speak. So if we were using the pressure washer, you can use a soft wash machine as well. That way you don't have as much. You can do a J-rod on a soft wash like you for wood, just like you would for building cleaning. So you can adjust the pressure through the tips. So what happens is this is all we need. And the pressure washer should be the same. If you have that 40-degree tip, you want a wider orifice nozzle that puts just garden hose pressure. And then we have it on that jet type setting, and it's just rinse. And as you see us rinsing, what happens here, we see some blotchiness, which is just what I'm talking about. See some places and areas where wood is, and other places where it's a little dull. When it dries, it's not going to look terrible, but that's what happens when you're come back and you go to stain. The customer sees this too, or you don't notice as much, but when you come back and you coat it, it shows up in the end result. And we can show that too. So anyway, that's your cleaner, your house wash mix. Here we're using the deck cleaner. Look how nice that wood's coming up. More consistent. We have wood fibers coming off. Those wood fibers that are coming off, they're called decomposed wood fibers or grade wood fibers. They've separated from the wood, and during wood restoration, they're rinsed off. When you just put on dry wood or you're using the house wash mix, a lot of people just put it on and leave it. You're not getting rid of the wood fibers. Next, we're using the Restore and the stripper. And again, we can see wood fibers coming off. We see the wood's really dark on there. And now we go to the stripper side, and you can see that even darker. And we're going to do this just like real world if we were at someone's home. So we want to make sure when we get done, we rinse off everything real good. So the house siding has to get rinsed off. Everything rinsed off real good. All right? So, got most of it off now. We're gonna add a little more volume to it and just rinse some of the wood fibers and so forth off. And now's kind of when the magic starts happening. And just so you know, if we were doing actually out on someone's wood surface fences or decks, we may vary the dwell times a little just to address some of the things like some of the heavy lichen that didn't want to come off. And it comes right off. It's kind of separated now. Pressure washer again would take it. Most of it's off already, as you can see. But we might adjust our dwell time. So there we go. We've rinsed, rinse again. No suds coming out. And now we're ready to apply our brightener. The brightener should be applied immediately after while the wood is still wet. Okay, so that's what we'll do now. This is the bang, okay? So the first thing we're gonna do is our house wash mix. Here we go with our deck cleaner. Again, you can see it lightening up now where it's close to the house wash mix, because what happens is it stops the melting of lignin, it drives the tannins back into the wood, it creates the neutral surface. Watch this now. We'll start on the bottom here so you can see the difference. Same thing over here. And you can see the wood lightening up. Darker up top, lighter on the bottom. When these all dry, they're going to appear relatively the same, but you'll be able to see the difference in the tone of the wood, which we'll see in a little bit after we come back and watch all this dried. All right. And there we go. We have now restored the wood. We trust the process. We don't get too analytical and say, wow, this is darker, we should put more brightener or anything like that. No matter what we did, we want to trust the process. When this dries, everything will appear perfect, okay? Or close to perfect. We never let a customer know what the end result's going to be because we don't know until this is completely done. The wood could be discolored, it could be aged, it could be not perfect. We don't want to say we can put a natural on it when we need something with a little bit of tint. Trust the process. We come back, we'll evaluate the wood. That's what we're going to do in a few minutes. Again, house wash mix, deck cleaner, deck restorer, and then the stripper. Okay? And you can see the effects and the differences in the wood. All right, we'll be right back and we're going to put some stain on some wet wood. For this part of the demo, we're going to use the Deck Restoration Plus Deck and Wood Stain. It can be applied to wet or dry wood. Actually, on wet wood, it kind of pulls it in and it still appears the same. You can look at the two, wet or dry. We're going to do them right next to each other. So I'm going to use the two where we did the cleaner, okay? The deck cleaner that we use, or the wood cleaner. And I'm going to do one on wet wood, and then we'll apply this to dry wood, and you'll be able to see the difference. But for now, we want to be able to just put it on one, because we want to see the difference when these all dry, what they look like. However, I do want to stain one panel. Now, when you do stain, if you're doing a wood siding, a deck, a fence, whatever it is, you always stain from the bottom up. That's what we're going to do here. The reason we stain from the bottom up is if we start from the top down like a lot of painters do, what happens is every drip marks is your first coat. So if you're putting two coats on the siding, those drip marks are the third coat. When you get done, it looks like you have freckles on the side of the house or on the fence. If you're spraying, same thing. Just be careful. You should still spray bottom up and then go back and go bottom up. A lot of people go up and down, but you can still have drip marks. Make sure somebody is there to get your drip marks. Okay, let's do this. So we have our two controls, our house wash, and the deck cleaner. We're going to use this deck cleaner first on wet wood, starting from the bottom. And what we do is we're going to do a two-coat procedure here. So we put on the first coat, and usually what we'll do is if we're doing a fence, say we're spraying, we would actually do like 4 panels and then come back and hit the second coat. But we want to do this wet on wet. So we allow the first coat to sit up for a few minutes. If it was a deck, 3 or 4 boards, go all the way across the deck, then we come back and put on a second coat. So for this, and I already know what it's going to look like because it's our stain and we use it, I'm going to go ahead and just quickly reapply some more. And again, when we come back and take a look at this, we'll see what that looks like. All right, so there we go. We put a coat of stain here. We're gonna see how all these dry. Then we'll put a second coat on here and we'll work on concluding the demo. All right, here we are back at the demo. And what we wanna look at here is the dry part of the demo, how the wood turned out, and make some comments and some observations of what we see. If you look very close, this looks like lighter, it looks bleached out. This is what happens when you use bleach or sodium hypochlorite. A lot of people don't realize, but sodium percarbonate will actually darken the wood a little. Not as much as your sodium metasilicate, your sodium hydroxide, and some of the other products that are out there. For us, our Restore and our Stripper. And if you look across here, we see the lighter, and then we see a little darker, but more wood tones in these three. These are darker. So what happens is we're looking for an optimal result. Everything is in the prep. The better the prep, the better the end result. This will be a good method. This is a better best. And that's how we have to look at that. So this would be a good, and then these are better and best as we move across. Light color, didn't even take out some of the nail bleeds, even using bleach. That's why we used to use, we concentrate on brightener. You won't always get them out completely. Sometimes it depends on how long the stain is set. But the key to this demonstration is we really have the nice wood tones over here, not with sodium hypochlorite. Okay, so although you can get away with this, and when it's stained, it's still gonna look decent, it's not optimal. Okay, now over here, this is the one panel where we used our Deck Restoration Plus Tabernacle Harvest stain on wet wood. And you can see it dried pretty nice. It looks nice, nice tone, nice color. Now what we're gonna do is we'll do the one right next to it. These were the ones that were clean with the same thing. So they were clean with sodium percarbonate. And then this is the wet. This will be the dry to the right. Come over here and get my stain. And here we go. And we're gonna do 2 coats. We're gonna do wet on wet. And we're gonna go from the bottom up. And then we're gonna compare the two, and we're gonna see what the difference is, if there is any. The one nice thing about the technology of using the Deck Restoration Plus Deck and Wood Stain is that there's basically no difference between, there is no difference between the wet and the dry wood. They come out looking very nice and very consistent. There we go. After we allow this to dry, we'll come back, we'll take a look at this, we'll look at the 2 panels, and we'll finish up our demonstration. All right, here we are to conclude our demonstration. So what we have now is, again, we have our sodium hypochlorite. We use sodium percarbonate on this because this is what we would use. Again, sodium percarbonate does get to the root of organic growth. It's meant for porous surfaces like wood. Bleach is meant for non-porous, sodium hypochlorite non-porous. This is porous, so when it hits the surface, it's done. It really doesn't get to the root of it. This really does a better job cleaning. We've gone ahead and put the Deck Restoration Plus Deck and Wood Stain. It can be applied to wet or dry wood on here. And here you can see there's not much difference. If anything, it looks more rich on the wet wood than it did the dry wood. But it still looks great. And you can see this isn't a film former. You can still see the grain through it. It's a penetrating water base. It's unlike, and the technology, it's unlike any other product on the market. It truly is. It can be applied to wet wood, dry wood, and it does penetrate the wood. So it's basically a water base that works like an oil. Okay, and then we have our sodium metasilicate and Restore products and our Stripper that we used to restore the wood. So that concludes our demo. You can see everything in this demonstration as far as what you need to minimally do exterior wood restoration today. If you don't have an arsenal of products like we have here, and then the brightener also, then you're trying to put that square peg in a round hole. It just doesn't work. This gets us putting the square peg in the square hole and the round peg in the round hole. So it just lines everything up, makes it easier to provide wood restoration services, makes it easier to restore the wood. And then when you have a product that you can rely on for wet or dry wood, you can do things in the same day. You could clean it and restore it and stain it in the same day. You could even clean and restore with one crew, and the next crew comes back either later that day or the next day and they do the staining. You can't do that with oils. You cannot stain the same day or the next day in most cases. So this is the way to do exterior wood restoration in today's market. The Deck Restoration Plus Deck and Wood Stain products will help you do that. I'm the Wizard of Wood, Everett Abrams. Thank you for watching the video.